Welcome to the HR department, your front row seat to conversations about the modern workplace and everything shaping the world of work. Powered by HRKyle Services, your guide through the world of work. This podcast is hosted by Kyle Patrick Smith and Becki Smith, two passionate voices bringing decades of experience, real-world insight, and a no-nonsense approach to the issues that matter most to employees, leaders, and HR pros alike. From hiring and culture to leadership and layoffs, nothing's off the table. So clock in, tune up, and get ready. The HR department starts now.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the HR department. I'm Kyle, this is Becki, and if you're new to the program, and you may very well be, we're happy to announce that we have just joined the HR channel. So HR Channel TV, which can be found on Roku, as well as YouTube and some other really wonderful streaming services. So if you're tuning in for the first time, again, welcome to the show. We're glad you've joined in. We're going to provide some very valuable information around HR and leadership today, and we hope you become a regular viewer. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Becki, who I know has a wonderful agenda scheduled for us today.
Thank you. And yes, our topic today is mergers and acquisitions, and if it's a conqueror or a partner situation.
That's a good one.
So I have a list of questions for you so that you can delve into that and let our viewers, listeners know all about that.
Absolutely. And I know you'll have some thoughts as well. You've been through a few of these situations.
So let's kind of start with what acquisitions, mergers mean for the company's future, whether they're being acquired or whether they're doing the merging.
Yeah, there's, and keep in mind, I'm going to speak to this topic from the people standpoint, because what I find is so often we're really good about talking about these situations from the financials and the assets and all those other things. But so often on this topic, we leave out the most important thing, and that is how are the people going to work through this process? So, in the simplest of terms, a merger is you have organization A, you have organization B, and they're beginning to merge their operations. More than likely, they either are doing the same or similar thing, or they have complementary things that they do, right? That's what fosters a merger. An acquisition is, I'm company A, I'm looking around the market. Company B is someone that's really good at doing something that I want to bring into my circle. Either it already fits into our product line, it supports our product line, or I just think it makes sense to have them part of our portfolio. So we as company A go out and we acquire company B and we bring them under our umbrella.
Right.
So in its simplest sense, from a business standpoint, that's what a merger is, and that's what an acquisition is. But again, that's not what we're going to talk about here today, right? We're going to get into the most important part that gets overlooked, and that's the people.
Right. And this is a really different situation, but they actually, when I was teaching, they actually closed one of the middle schools and they merged the two middle schools together. Yep. Now, most people would think, oh, what about the kids? The kids will be able to figure it out. What didn't get figured out was the staff.
Exactly.
And it was awful. They should have gotten us all together multiple times to meet each other, to talk about, but it became us versus them situation.
Yep.
It was horrible.
Well, and we see that time and again. I'm glad you brought that up, because so often we think of merger and acquisition, we think of corporate America. They're merging, they're acquiring, whatever. But yes, it happens in academia. Yes, it happens in education. Yes, it happens in nonprofits. These same type of scenarios play out. And what I can tell you, my hunch is what happens so many times in these situations. Someone didn't think it mattered because Becki's a teacher, that person's a teacher. They're similar. They know what they're supposed to do.
We're
They've
adults.
been teaching for a long time. It's a teacher and a teacher. It's a job title. That's all it is. And unfortunately, organizations and people aren't like a car engine, for example. My battery goes bad. I take that battery out. I put a new battery in, plug it in. Everything goes on its way. Something else happens. It needs replaced. We drain the oil. We do those things. We drain the oil. We put new oil in. It doesn't matter. Organizations, though, aren't that way. And it's always fascinating to me how many companies will say, our people are our most important asset. But that's not true, because in that transaction, that merger, acquisition, whatever, the only assets they care about are the buildings, the equipment, the cash, the reserves, all those other things. That's the only asset. So the people aren't the most important asset, because if they were, they would be the first thing that's discussed in mergers and acquisitions. And I'm speaking from personal experience, having been involved in a few of these throughout my career, as well as in our work here at HRKyle. I can tell you right now, most companies either don't think about the people first, think about them, but only when it's too late, or simply don't think about it at all, and then they deal with the fallout like you're describing.
Right. And my situation, it was too late at that point. So, so let's kind of just move on and talk about preserving. How then do you preserve the identity and the strengths of both companies?
Yeah. You and I have talked about this before because it's part of our work. One of the things you need to do is a cultural audit. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. One of the more effective ways, obviously, is to bring in an organization like us. Why do I say that? Well, of course, we want more business, right? Let's make no mistake about that. But the other thing that it does, it brings in an objective third party to look at the situation and see what it is they see. Because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to leadership in an organization. I've said, tell me about your organization. Tell me about its personality. Tell me about its culture. And I'll get this laundry list. They're really good at doing that. They'll pull out the mission division. They'll do that. And then I'll walk around the building and I'll spend some time there and I'll talk with people. Come to find out the true identity of the organization is differing from what I've heard, or it could be completely different.
Right.
For any number of reasons. Again, we could go into that. It's biased. They don't see it. They want to convey a certain thing, whatever. But when I've talked to employees, that's where I get the true story of what the organization looks like. Because a lot of our culture, when we talk about organization, speaks to how we interact, terminology that we use, our cadence as far as with meetings and our viewpoints on that and so on. And really the only way you can ever get to the bottom of that is get out and talk to people and experience it firsthand and see what it looks like.
Right.
And it's not a quick process. It's not I meet with the CEO, we talk for an hour, and I know everything I ever needed to know. It's usually about a 2-week period of time because a lot happens over 2 weeks, up to and including payroll processing and all those things that we would take for granted. But all of those things speak to a company culture. And honestly, the only way you can do it is if you have something that's either lived experience or something that's close to it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea. Yeah. So would be a first step situation.
Absolutely it is. And what that does for you as well, a couple of things. One, it gets the organizations comfortable with this third party, Kyle and Becki and our team, for example, in the organization, learning about things, talking about things. They clearly see that we're taking an interest, right? But it prepares them for further along in the process, because as we then go through this process of merger, in this example, they're used to seeing us. So as we're walking the organization through the process, the people part of the merger, employees are already used to seeing us. We've built relationships because those same people are the ones that we're going to want to talk to during the true merger period and after. Again, keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the organization. How is the organization reacting to this situation? And then, of course, the after is now we're bringing these people together. And it's company A and it's company B. So we want to understand, how is that working out? And what are the things that we can do to make that better, as opposed to your situation? Shove it all together, things start to blow up, and then you're in reactive mode at that point. You don't have relationships. You've already destroyed your trust. You've destroyed honesty. You've destroyed all those things. Because even as you told the story, it was very clear that even to this moment, it elicits a negative reaction. Now, how effective are we going to be going into that situation and trying to clean it up versus having gone through all the process to try to prevent it in the first place? Because we are going to make mistakes in a merger situation. We know that, and it'll never be perfect. But I would rather have as much of it figured out as possible, have our process in place, and then have the relationships established to where we can go to Becki and some other people and say, you know what? Let's talk about the things we did well. Let's talk about the things that we still need to work on and see what we can do about that. And guess what? Becki and her friends and colleagues and so on, they're going to be more receptive to that conversation because they're going to see that we probably did 95 to 98% of the things correct. And there's only just a small percentage that we need to clean up versus the scenario you presented. What's the damage? 75, 80%? I mean, what would be your assessment?
It was high.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago. So
Right.
I'm still, still on my mind. So
Exactly.
So continuing then, obviously talking about the people. So let's say the scenario that we have these two companies that come together, and in company A, somebody was promised a promotion.
Yep.
Company B, same kind of similar job, was also promised a promotion before everything started to happen.
Yep.
So how do you handle the new opportunities for employees so that they don't get passed by and don't get disgruntled?
I'm so glad that you brought up that example because, again, from lived experience, from having seen it, you'd be amazed how often that particular scenario happens. And I'll tell you how it happens. Manager is talking to employee, and during this period of merger and acquisition, we've put a freeze on promotions. We probably put a freeze on raises and everything else. And the conversation sounds something like, Becki, I hear what you're saying. You're very deserving of a promotion. But you know where we are right now. We got to hold everything steady because the organization has to have a steady state as we progress through the merger. Right. But it's my belief that after we get through it, you deserve a promotion. Now, notice I didn't promise it, but I said you deserved it. But guess what Becki heard? I'm going to get a promotion out of this.
Exactly.
If I can just ride through it, I'll get a promotion. Because, again, the other thing is, and this is why we're so conscious of the communication before, that's manipulative because part of what that manager's thinking, oh God, I can't lose Becki right now. We need Becki to get us through this merger, and they need to see her name as part of the roles. And when the acquiring company comes in, they need to see Becki here and so on. So I'm choosing my words carefully. I'm lying a little bit because I need Becki to stay. Right. But guess what happens? To your point, okay, the merger is completed. We're a couple of months out. Guess what Becki's thinking?
Where's my promotion?
Exactly. And Becki comes to me, maybe I'm still her boss, or worse, seen this as well, Becki's got a new boss. Becki comes to me, Becki, what's that conversation sound like? I'm your new boss. We've just met, and tell me what you're going to say.
So when John was here, he promised me that I would get a promotion because I was in line for the next step up for this manager role. So what's going to happen with that?
So manager unprepared for this conversation because, again, that's not a part of most mergers and acquisitions. Who cares about the people? We've got the financials right. Manager immediately puts his or her foot in their mouth and alienates Becki in probably their first meeting when he says, well, I don't know anything about that. John's gone now and I'm here and I know the budget I've been given and the structure is set. The org structure is set now. We, to make this merger really work, Becki, we need you to stay, but we can't make any changes right now. Can't tell you how many times that answer has been given. So Becki, what's your reaction when I say that?
Well, I have another question for you because rumor mill is saying that Susie, who you brought over with you, is getting that promotion that I was promised.
Well, I can't speak to Susie's situation in this meeting. That's something separate, and I don't do that kind of thing.
Well,
again, wrong answer there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say thanks and walk out, and I'm going to be looking for a job as soon as I head out.
And there's very little that could have been done in a recovery standpoint. But there are some things that I would have worked with our managers on to handle those situations because, again, we know they're happening. But the biggest part is I would have prepared the organization for these kind of communications going into this. And again, this isn't about lying. This isn't about playing with words. This is about being open and honest and adult and professional in our communications. Nothing I would ever say would be a lie, a mistruth, or whatever, a manipulation tactic. Guess what? People don't want that. They want the truth. They want to know what's really going to happen, and they don't want surprises after, because now we've alienated Becki. And remember how I set it up? We really needed Becki to get us through the merger and afterwards. So now a key person in our transition will be leaving very soon.
Yep. Okay. Exactly. So as that person and my new manager, could we discuss after the merger? Can we discuss career growth? Is there going to be career growth? And how are we going to handle that as a service to talk to both of these companies for career growth?
Great question. In these circumstances, there are absolutely opportunities for career growth. But guess what happens most of the time? The managers, that's no part of most conversations with mergers and acquisitions. I can tell you, how do I know? Again, I've been through them. I know what is talked about and what's not. And nobody ever unless they're working with an organization such as HRKyle, is preparing to say, okay, let's keep in mind as after we get through this process here, and we're one organization, we need to begin to think about what our new performance management process looks like, what our new progression process, what are our new statements and standings relative to compensation, internal promotions, all of those things, because those are all the things that we needed to have, again, mapped out before this process is completed. Because the other thing that becomes very awkward is Becki comes to me and she says, okay, I've done some research on this, and I know that when companies go through these, a lot of times on the other end, it opens up a lot of other opportunities because we're so much bigger of an organization now. The worst answer I can give is, I don't know yet, Becki. We're still trying to figure that out.
Right.
Okay. What's your reaction when I say something like that? I'm sorry, Becki, we haven't figured that out.
Right. So again, we already had discussion, and I'm not getting promoted.
Yeah. So
I leave, and I'm like, okay, I want to stay here. So let me just see if there's career growth going to happen. And so I come back to you and I ask you about, I know I can't necessarily get promoted right now, but what does career growth look like with the company right now?
Well, we're just coming out of this merger, Becki, and it's a new organization. Everybody's got a seat. Thank goodness, right? Be thankful you have your job. Okay, I love that when they say that, because nobody ever thinks, oh, you're right. You're right. I'm thankful to have this job. Nobody ever says that. That's the answer that you're given. Just, be happy you got a job, Becki. The seats are filled right now. Don't worry about promotion right now. We got to get through this. Maybe that's your attitude as manager, because you've got your spot. You're happy with your pay and everything. But I can assure you, Becki as employee, she's not thinking that.
No. And at this time, if it's the same person, I've now been shut down twice.
Right.
So I was trying to hang in with the company because I do like it here. And I thought, I was going to be moving up and doing different things, but now I've been shut down twice.
Yep.
So what you're saying is proactive versus reactive.
All the way through. We've got to, and what we do is when we're working with organizations through this process, we're thinking about what's going to happen before, what's going to happen during, and what's going to happen after, relative to your people. Again, you've got the financial parts, and there's plenty of experts on that. There's plenty of them out there. I've been contacting me all the times relative to this. But there's very few experts around the people side of a merger and acquisition. So that's where we come in.
Yep, exactly.
And we know, again, based upon experience, firsthand, working with organizations, so on, we know the things that will need to be done in the before, during, and after to prepare for those conversations, to make sure we've got a structure in place that takes us forward.
Right.
Because so many times the focus of a merger and acquisition is just that actual transaction. Let's get that done. We'll worry about everything else later.
Right. So possibly these negative conversations that are happening with the employee won't happen, because you've already planned a time to talk to them, showing a plan, looking, doing what we need to do.
We've been transparent, right? They see that. We've been honest. We haven't tried to sugarcoat everything. So again, they may not need to be happening because we're ahead of it.
Yes.
Or the other good thing is, and I can speak about you like this. You're always going to be the most outspoken person in any sort of a situation. We want Becki as an advocate, right? We talked about that a little bit this week too.
Yeah.
And if you're a subscriber to our newsletter, you'll see something on that. We want people like Becki who are a little bit more outspoken, make friends, talk amongst themselves, that kind of thing. Because if we can give her the straight answers, even in advance, ideally, she's spreading that among other people, and other people are going to Becki, right?
Yes,
that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Hey, so she can be a real advocate for us in this situation, especially if, again, we've done everything before, but still Becki might be the type that still has questions. But if we can be prepared for those questions, give Becki reasonable answers, not only do we make Becki's situation more stable, but she begins to act as our advocate, or what I call ambassador.
Ambassador. Yep, the cultural ambassador.
Cultural ambassador throughout the organization.
Yep, exactly.
So then it becomes a win-win, because this thing spreads.
Yeah. Fantastic conversation. I just kind of wrapping it up, just my last question. Talk about resources and support that we may need to bring in, they may ask about. Talk about those.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing that you and I both know, and from our past experience again and the work that we're doing now, no two situations are the same. We've got certainly a process that we follow and so on, but we build enough flexibility into it to be able to account for certain situations. And again, they could be in any number of things. We may need to look at stay bonuses because someone's job is going to be impacted, but we can't afford to lose them in this situation. So that may be something that we work through and we deploy. And I say deploy because it's not a matter of saying, well, let's just give Becki $10,000 more and she'll stay. No, trust me, it's more complicated than that. And we've got to be very conscious of it, because there's internal equity, there's what's happening outside the market. We've got to make sure it's relevant to Becki, it's beneficial to her to stay, and so on. The other thing that is a huge part of our service that tends to cure a lot of ills is our ability to deploy our outplacement services. And again, working through this process and knowing that at the beginning, when we know, as we've gone through the analysis, we know 100 people are going to be impacted, you're in so much better of a position if you can go into those meetings with employees, for example, and say, here's what's happening, here's why it's happening, work through that process, the script that we build for you. And then say on the end of that, you're important to us. You always have been. One of the things that we've engaged with is a service to provide you outplacement services, because we know you're going to need help with your resume and your cover letter and searching for jobs and all this new technology, this AI thing that you've been hearing about in job searches. Becki, we know you're nervous. We're trying to do everything we can to make this a little bit more of a soft landing. And you can tell them that right in that meeting. So you've talked about what's happening and here's the next steps and so on. And the beauty of what we do and what we've created here, we can deploy those services immediately. So it's not a case of Becki's impacted today and the next 2 weeks this happens. And the other good thing is we don't address this as a passive process. Give them a phone number, Becki, and and they'll call. No. We are actively a part of the process. We may be able to do things exactly that day. The same day all of this is happening. The other thing that we offer to you, and this is so critical in these mergers and acquisitions, is we're a support service after. So when your employees have questions about what's happened in the severance, we've already got a consistent message. So we're also not only protecting your brand, but we're providing you some extra horsepower through what is definitely a very busy time. Because while these 100 employees are exiting the organization, you as a leader are trying to figure out all these other moving parts that are happening. Well, isn't it nice to have the HRKyle team there to answer questions about the severance package, to answer questions about unemployment, to help employees return whatever items that they owe to the company? So we're managing that process so you don't have to, and you can focus on business going forward and bringing your teams together as they exist at that point. So glad you brought that up, because this isn't a matter of us just sitting around a table and giving you some scripts and doing that. We work each situation uniquely. We provide what's needed. And, starting all this, we try to understand who you are and who you want to be after the situation, whatever it is, the merger, the acquisition, the downsizing, whatever it amounts to.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you mentioned the two words busy time, and it will be a chaotic, crazy busy time when that is happening. And it would be fantastic if you bring us on to help you again with that people part of the situation.
Well, exactly, because if you're in that situation, and again, I don't fault anybody. When you're in an organization that's going through these situations, it's natural to feel nervous, angry, depressed, have those emotions. What we bring in on top of everything else is that steadying force. And it doesn't mean we're immune to the emotions that are happening around us, but we have the answers to those emotions. So we can help employees work through that process as well. And again, that's an advantage that we bring, because not only are the people that are impacted going to be emotional, but those that are left, right?
Well, thanks again. This is a great conversation. We love to talk about these things. So again, this is the HR department, and you can connect with us at 330-541-5533. We also are very good we actually check and read our emails. Becki, Becki, at HRKyle.com, or Kyle at HRKyle.com as well. We also, our website is HRKyle.com.
Got it all right here. Again, Becki, thank you for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. We make it happen, huh?
Yes, we do. Yeah, totally.
Thanks for joining us on the HR Department, powered by HRKyle Services, your trusted partner for HR consulting, outplacement, talent strategy, leadership development, and career coaching. If today's conversation got you thinking, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with anyone navigating the ever-changing world of work. To learn more about our services, whether you're a company leader, an HR pro, or a job seeker, visit HRKyle.com. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, hiring with intention, and showing up for your people.